Okay, well then let's go and get rolling as we work out like I said, Rob, I never get nervous for these things, but when all of a sudden it's technology is involved, I'm like, uh-oh, what can happen from here? So let's go ahead and just roll. We want to thank everyone for joining us today, especially for those of you that are here on the Zoom and then those of you that are LinkedIn Live. My name is Corey Knight. I'm the Director of Sales Training Development and Sales Performance Coach for Silverton Mortgage, and I'll be hosting this session with our special guest, Rob Ellerman. Let me just give you a little background about Rob. I've got to know him over the last year or so. But Rob started his real estate career in 1996 and quickly gained recognition with numerous awards, including Rookie of the Year, Rising Star, #1 sales units closed, and membership in the $1 Million Club. And his business just continued to grow, and he recognized the need for a team to better serve his clients. So in 2022, the team achieved an impressive $877.5 million in sales and helped 2,114 buyers and sellers find and move into their dream home, which is just fantastic. The team's the humble beginnings began in 1996 and quickly gained, the team's humble beginnings started with one full-time office manager and 3 agents and have since expanded to include over 180 veteran agents. And the team's growth and success are attributed to, of course, their leader, Rob, who continuously seeks out new and innovative ways to serve his clients, builders, and the real estate team. As one of the fastest growing real estate teams, he provides the best service possible for all their clients. Before we dive into the session, just kind of want to lay a little groundwork down. And the opinions and the interpretations, everything going on are strictly Rob's that don't necessarily, of course, we have to do our legal reflect
For sure.
back to Silverton Mortgage, even though we agree on a lot of things. And, Rob and I will kind of talk for the first 30 or so minutes. And then if you have questions, please put it inside the Q&A tab in our session here. And then we'll have people that will be monitoring those questions and will come and answer your questions at the end. So that way because some of your questions Rob will be answering as we go. Now, we are recording this session. It will be available on our speaker series if you come to Silverton Mortgage's website for future reviewing. So no further ado, Rob, we want to thank you for joining us today and telling us about the little weather in Kansas City. For those of you who don't know, Rob is based out of Kansas City. And thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Corey. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so let's just jump into my first questions, and I'm really excited to be able to bring this. But Rob started off on his own, and then he built a team. And one thing I've noticed after speaking with you and meeting, and trained your agents, coached some of your agents, you have a great knack for hiring good agents. What are some of the successful traits you look for when bringing and hiring an agent to your team?
Absolutely, Corey. So for me, the biggest thing really right out of the gate is they have to fit our culture, right? I mean, if they're not a cultural fit, you bring somebody in that becomes a cancer to the organization, then one person that you think, like, oh, I'm going to add another person and, maybe make a little money off this person, and they end up, running off several agents on the team. So you can't do that. You have to have a cultural fit there. So that's the most important thing. I mean, that starts with honesty, integrity, doing business the right way. If we know someone in town doesn't have a great reputation as an agent, we're not going to put them on our team. I don't want our veteran agents having somebody come along and say, man, that's kind of a bad look for our team. So we right out of the gate, don't do that. I really like the book Hungry, Humble, Smart, right? So we try to look for people that are hungry and they're humble and they're smart. And so that's one of our processes of looking at people there. And then after the cultural fit, I would say that, for me, my biggest thing, our teams ran a little different in the fact that we let our agents run their business under our umbrella. So it's kind of like they're powered by our network in a way, even though, yeah, they're on the team, but, we try to power them with all the back end tools that we have. And so if someone's not self-motivated, it's just not a fit for us, right? There's a lot of teams out there that may have better accountability practices than we do. it's just not us. So, lots of stories of interviewing somebody at my desk, and that person says to me, hey, I want to come in here every Monday. I want you to give me homework for the week. I want the next Monday, I want you to yell at me if I don't do my calls and my homework. And I usually say, hey, if you go down the hall and turn right, there's a team down there that does great with accountability. And that's probably the team you need to be on. So if you're not self-motivated for our team, it just doesn't work. I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver for our agents, right? I mean, I could have somebody that I really want badly, but they really want the accountability of me just, giving them homework and being there all the time. And I would fail at that, based on how our team is ran. So we look for self-motivation, so all that put together, that's kind of our initial look on agents when we do our hiring process.
That's great. So basically, kind of to bring it back, one, I guess you're obviously a fan of Patrick Lencioni with the ideal team player with hungry, humble, and smart. So it's
Right.
great. Then the motivation is that's huge nowadays, because a lot of people, like I always ask the question, are you driven? If they're like, yeah, driven, I'm like, who or what is driving? Because you're not in the driver's seat, you're in the passenger seat. In fact, that you look for people that are driving, I think that's one of the biggest successes for eight, especially in this market, and why you have that eye and knack for it is you're finding those driving agents who are good. I've coached a couple of them, and they're like, no, I got to go out, I got to do this, and I don't have to keep them accountable because they call me back, hey, I didn't do this, I did this. Here's what I'm doing next time. So, so when those are some of the traits you're looking for, obviously those traits have discipline. So what are some of the basic disciplines your agents do on a daily basis that brought and led to the success that you've had in this market?
Right. So I'd like to be able to say that there's a secret sauce, right, to real estate, but I think everybody that's in real estate and touches it in any form understands that there's no secret sauce, right? The people who work the hardest make the most money. I mean, it's just plain and simple. When I came to Kansas City, I knew 0 people. My broker said, write down everybody you knew in Kansas, in Kansas City. And I didn't have one name in the entire greater Kansas City area that I could write down. So how do you get to the point where we're at today when 0 people in Kansas City, and it's just hard work, right? So with that being said, like the daily principles that I see are the people that succeed the most. They're still getting back to the basics. They're getting back to open houses right now have been probably the biggest thing for our agents. Especially with low inventory, those opens, you can list it on Friday, hold it open Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, take all offers Sunday night, and have it sold by Monday, and you picked up 3 or 4 clients on that listing. So opens, we've got a gal on our team that holds 4 opens a weekend. She holds 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. She was a rookie doing $13 million because she just did more open houses than anybody else in the city, and it was super successful. So I think, that's one thing that, getting back to the basics of your circle of influence as well, making sure that you're keeping up with all of your people. I tell my agents when I was selling, I used to have a term, and I would ask my clients, who is your family realtor? Do you have a family realtor? And most people are like, I don't understand what that is. What is a family realtor? And I would say, I want to be your go-to guy for everything related to your house. It hailed here in Kansas City this morning. So, do you need to check your roof, right? You mentioned that earlier. How's your roof, Rob? So, do you need to check your roof for hail? Like, I've got a guy. I've got a guy for this, gal for this. We've got different vendors and stuff. So you got a leaky basement. You got anything happens. You want to be the family realtor that their entire family goes to for all things real estate related, because what happens inevitably is when they're ready to sell, they're like, oh, it's my house. Call Rob, right? So that's always been a big part of my career, is making sure that I stay in front of my circle of influence and be the guy for them. And I also tell my agents, like, what's the best thing that could happen when you sell a house? give me your thoughts on the best thing that could happen. And everybody would say, oh, they refer you somebody, or they're super happy or whatever. And I would say, no, you got to hope their hot water heater breaks. And people would look at me like, what? And I said, I'm telling you, if their hot water heater breaks and you just step up and replace it for them, you're done. You don't even maybe have to advertise to those people the rest of your life. I mean, they are going to refer you so many people because you stepped up and helped them, right? And you don't have to, right? And so, I would always say, if I could spend, $800 or $900 on somebody right out of the gate doing something amazing for them, they are just a raving fan for life. And at that point, so really, it's just, it is back to the basics. It's keeping your circle of influence, calling you on everything. I tell my agents, be on Facebook, be on all the social media, give, if they have a baby, give them a baby gift. If they've got a graduation, if they, everything, you need to be a part of their life. So, there's a lot of real estate agents out there, and they always know several. So go to your Facebook page, look at all the realtors they know, and you're going to see several every single time. So you've got to be the person that's above and beyond everybody else.
All right. So what's interesting, because I guess with the market the way it's been, a lot of the basics have been forgotten. Am I correct? And so
Correct. Yeah.
with you, basically, the easy button is, guess what? It's time to go back to the basics and do the work, which is, calling your database. One is having a value proposition. And your value proposition is, I want to be your family agent. Where did most agents, like when I talk to them, I go, so what's your value proposition? They say, well, I return all my calls. I'm going to treat you like family. And I go, well, would you say that? Would you say that? And everyone else says the same thing. You came up with something unique, which basically, guess what? I want to be your family agent. What made you think of that and go, something, this is going to be my value proposition, what I'm going to stake my claim on?
Right. Back when I was selling, it was just, I knew that you had to be there for everything related to the house. The first thought was, anything related to the house, I want to be the first call, because then when they need to sell the house, they think house Rob, right? So that was really all it was just making sure that anytime they thought about their house, they called me. And so when they got ready to sell, it was obviously me. We used to do big listing presentations in these leather binders, and I would tell them, put everything related to the house in this binder. You replace your roof, put it in there. You replace your HVAC, put it in there. And they had these big binders that they would put in their, their closet or their office or whatever. And 10 years later, they would be like, oh, I'm thinking about selling the house. I need to get the binder out. And they get the binder out. There's all my stuff in it, and then they're calling me going, hey, let's do this. So it's just everything in general on that. But as far as the value goes, I mean, that's definitely one thing. But being a leader of a big team, a mega team, I guess you would call us at this point. Every time I talk to a team lead, I ask that person. So somebody that maybe I'm recruiting to come over, I'll say, tell me what your value is to your team, and don't say you. Right. So had a happy hour just the other day, and I said that exact question. Tell me what your value is to your team, and don't say it's you. And we sat in silence for about 2 minutes. And after 2 minutes, I was like, you've kind of given me my answer, right? You don't have any value for your team members other than you. So at some point, the knowledge that you have, the experience that you have, the ideas that you have, you're going to teach all of that to your agents. And then what's left, right? I've got agents doing 40, 50, $60 million a year underneath the team. Do I have more knowledge than they do on selling homes? I mean, they're in the trenches doing 50, $60 million a year. I'm not arrogant enough to say that I know more than they do, right? I need them. I need to ask them questions because they're in the trenches. So at what point at what do they look at it and say, what's my other value? Right. And so for our team, we look at it from all of our back end systems. We have we have 2 office managers. We have a marketing director with 3 marketing people. We have a social media director. We have a lead coordinator. We have an in-house trainer. We put all of this back end stuff together to say, now, maybe early on, I'm some knowledge and I'm some help or whatever, but you're going to grow past me. and hopefully quickly, because I'm not that smart, right? So you just grow right out of it. But that's our value proposition on the back end is all of our systems and everything there as well. So and what we're seeing is, these teams look at it, these teams underneath our team. So a group underneath us will look at it and say, I could go out and be successful on my own. Every one of my agents that do big volume, absolutely, they could be successful on the team or off the team. I never say it's because of me that they're successful. But what we try to look at is, if you have to go out on your own and pay for all of that value, then at some point you look at your split and go, well, I'm really at a way lower split than if I just went with Rob and his team and had all the value without paying for it, and my split's a little higher. And so in the end, they actually make more money and get way more value than they could doing it on their own. So that's why we're seeing a lot of teams come, into our group and say, hey, I want to run under your umbrella.
Okay, so I guess with that leading the way, what are some of the ways that, like, agents that are on here now, what are ways they should leverage their broker and their team to assist their success going forward?
Yeah. Well, some of it's just what I said, right? I mean, if your team that you're on doesn't have a ton of value, then what are you doing? You might as well go out on your own and create your own value. So, and same with the brokerage, right? Like, I think the brokerages are super important. Your owners, your brokers, your corporate, what value do they actually add? There's a ton of 100% companies out there today, right? I could go get 100% and I don't, because I don't think they provide the value that I need. Oh, we'll give you 100%, but we're not giving you office space. We got one broker in the entire state. That's not what I want. I want the culture. I want brokers that I can call right up or walk downstairs and chat with somebody, that's going to help our business grow too. I love that we have legal at most of our brokerages, right? So, like, if we need legal advice, they can tell us exactly what to write in the contract. Some people will say, well, I don't, my broker gives me the legal advice. I'm like, your broker's not an attorney, right? So that's maybe not a great thing. So I love that piece of it. So there's all kinds of different value. Are you with a company that has one of the biggest websites that gives you leads back? I mean, there's all kinds of value. And I think people, unfortunately, agents will sometimes in this business look at commission split, and they'll try to find their best deal on commission split, when in fact they're going to make more money if they get a little bit less commission, but way more value for their clients. Because it's hard for me to think about sitting in front of a seller and saying, I'm giving you everything I possibly can to sell your house for the most money in the shortest amount of time, when I know in my mind, I really am not. I'm just getting the higher commission split. Right. So I don't really have the value for you, but I'm making more money when I sell your house. So
one thing is, you actually talked about what really it's a services that help you succeed, and you provide the services, and you talk about a blended commission, in which, what's it really look like at 100, whereas if you join somebody else that gave you these services that you don't have to pay for yourself. Can you explain that a little bit more, so agents out there can understand kind of, hey, look, here's what your broker and stuff they offer.
Yeah. Oh, this is my favorite subject, Corey. You hit a home run on this one. So, like, and I don't like to badmouth other companies. There's always there's a butt for every chair, right? We always say, like, you may want another company based on something else, and that's fine if we're not the right fit or whatever. But I'll talk to agents all the time, and I'll say, what split are you on? And they'll say, oh, I'm on 100%. And I'm like, okay, well, you're not on your company can't give you 100%, or they make no money at all. And then what tools do you get? What do your clients get? I mean, it's impossible for a company to run on that. But what'll happen is, let's just take an example of a cap company, right? Because there's several cap companies, and they say, hey, you pay in $25,000 a year, and then we'll give you 100,000 or 100%, right? And so they'll tell me they're on 100%, and I'll say, well, how much did you make this year? And they're like, I made $100,000. And I'll say, okay, well, you paid $25,000 in to get on that 100%, right? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, if you subtract 100,000, you subtract 25,000 from that you paid in, that's 75,000. If you divide that back into 100, that's 75%. So we're on a 75% split all year. And they're like, no, I'm at 100. I'm like, no, you're at 75%. This is factual information. This is just numbers. They don't lie, right? So then we can take it to the next step, especially with bigger agents, right? Too. Like once you start, like I'll have somebody say, now I want to grow a team myself. And I say, okay, what's your first addition to the team? And they may say, I need to hire an office manager to kind of handle everything, right? And I'll say, okay, how much is that? And they'll say $50,000. I'm like, okay, well, 50,000 is 65,000 once you pay taxes and all the stuff on it, right? So now you got to subtract that 65 from whatever your gross commission was, and that's part of your commission split. So there's big teams out there that if you really look at their numbers, they're maybe making 40, 50, 60% really, and they could come join me, be it 80, 85, 90%, whatever their volume level is, and have all of that back end already in place, plus a ton more. And they're getting a true, 80, 85, 90% on it because they're not paying for that stuff. So that's where the blended split comes in. And we have to educate a lot of agents on that. And some of them get it, right? Some of them get it. And some of them, it takes a while, to get, and that's okay. And sometimes we're just not a fit for whatever reason otherwise, but the commission split to me, when we talk blended is really important to get out there to the overall industry to make sure they understand that, like, it's not always you want to try to fight for the biggest commission split. It's what kind of value do you have on the back end? And because eventually, if you really do want to grow in real estate, and maybe some of the people listening want to have bigger teams or whatever, you have to have value. And the only way to do that is to pay for that value for your team. And once you pay for it, that commission split gets blended down. So you have to realize where your numbers are all the time.
I think that's great because, as you know, we're talking about how do you do business in this time, and really sometimes a lot of people think in a crunch market, I do need to make the most money per transaction, rather than going, maybe I could get more transactions because you got to invest back into your business. So why not work for someone that does that for lots, that kind of has, in essence, a special sauce like you and your team have, in order to help grow, because that's what the hardest part in this market right now. But yeah,
so great example is I interviewed an agent just the other day, and she was a little worried about the commission split. Like, my split's not as high as I want it to be, but fairly new agent, like pretty much brand new, right? So didn't join the team. 3 or 4 weeks later, called me back, got back together, told me that they lost out on a $900,000 listing. And the reason was they didn't have enough marketing. They didn't have as much marketing as the next person. And knowing that if she would have joined the team, even at a little bit lower split than what she thought she could go get, she would have had a $900,000 listing. And that listing sold in like 2 days, right? So prime example of, you might try to go for 100% or 95% or 90% or whatever you're trying to gain there, and you get 0%, right? So I always used to say, you want 100% of a mom and pop store, or do you want 1% of Walmart? Strictly money wise, I'll take 1% of Walmart all day. So sometimes it's not about the percentages, it's about the value. I shouldn't say sometimes. I think all the time it's about the value versus the split. So
I agree. I mean, just looking at just your family real estate agent, you're basically saying, hey, here's the commission I made, and I'm willing to go ahead and within the first 3 weeks lower my commission, so to speak, and buy you a new water heater, knowing that, guess what, you're going to remember me for that until everyone, yeah, my water heater went out in the first couple of weeks, and Rob bought me a new water heater. He felt bad and did that. I mean, that's most amazing, because odds are everyone else say, well, my agent didn't do that.
Right.
Now, how many generations do you think that has led down from, like, the parents saying, hey, Rob did this, if you're going to get your first home, you need to talk to Rob?
Oh yeah. I mean, we've got, I've got stories from my past when I was selling of, one specific couple, I think 8 or 9 different deals, right? I mean, and I used to tease my people as well. I would say, this is the last house we're ever buying. And I'm like, I can always hope for divorce, and then I get a bunch of houses from there, and they're like, geez, Rob, you can't say that. And so like, I'm teasing, but that's part of it, right? I mean, if you make both people happy, you never know the circumstances that happens in the future. And we've had a lot of times where, we do have a couple get divorced, and I sell that house, I sell him a house, I sell her a house, and then, they sell both those again, and we sell those, I mean, it just, if you're that person that has that relationship, you're getting all those deals. And then you've got to keep up with them, though, because in today's world, um, they are going to have a friend that is a better friend than you, right? Get into the business at some point. And that's what's tough. Like, how do you beat out the new friend that, have become close to them in more of a friendship way than you are? You're more little business, partly friend, right? So it's really hard on that. And I tell people, I used to tell my people all the time, hey, when one of your friends gets into real estate, the first thing you tell them is, hey, I love you, I never want to stop being friends with you, but I've got a family realtor. It's Rob. He's done all of our stuff. I always have to use him. So even 5 years from now, if I sell my house, I have to use him, even though we're good friends. Right. And if you say it up front when they get their license, then they understand. So, just always trying to make sure that, you're keeping up with your people and making them put you top of mind all the time.
Okay, so looking back at it, Rob, basically you've done the basics, which is built this. You created your value proposition. You obviously stay in front of your database, and you had a way to where anytime anything happened to their house, you pop back up top of mind again.
Yeah.
Standard stuff, which are those, again, back to basics, the simple disciplines to make it work. Now, we talked about, what do you look for in agents, which is the discipline and the drive to do it on their own. They do the basics. They have to find their value proposition. They're mixed with the right company, because your company is your support. And again, right, the more you get of you, the less you get of them. And so you have to find that right balance. But lastly, when you talk about being able to find driven people and looking for that, obviously you have your drive. So what is it that gets Rob up every day? And how does Rob get up every day and be able to lead a team of 180, have the enthusiasm? I mean, your team is great, because when I showed up to do the training, when the people signed up, they showed up, which is crazy for the real estate industry.
Right.
But they showed up because they wanted to learn. So what is it that drives you, and where did you get all yours from?
Right. So obviously there's a personal side of motivation, and then there's a business side of motivation, right? And so I'll talk more of the business side of motivation. And honestly, I feel like that if you truly care about your agents and you want them to succeed, that's what grows your team. Right. Had a call this morning with an agent that's one of my top agents, and we had a big meeting yesterday, and she said, I felt like that you were talking to everybody, and everybody knew you cared about them, and you were talking directly to them, even though there was a big room full of agents, right? And I said, I think that comes from, I really do care. I really do appreciate them, right? So part of that is, it's not fake. I do have the backs of my agents. I am very excited about them being on the team. And I understand that I wouldn't be in the position I am in unless they're on the team. So one of the things I'm most proud of is our retention rate. In this business, I mean, you see people jumping from team to team, company to company. You see that all the time. You mentioned earlier, we have 180 agents across the country. Last year, 2 agents left, right? So 99% retention last year. So, and we probably added 30, right? So I mean, and we're not always a fit, and sometimes somebody moves away or whatever, and sometimes somebody gets out of the business completely and whatever. Most agents don't ever leave on a bad note. They don't ever, leave with, some sort of argument, or that we're mad at each other. The door's usually open for them to come back, which we've had happen several times over the year. They get sold a bill of goods, and, grass is greener, and then they come back. Right. So that's always good. But so yeah, I think our retention rate, that's really important to me. Yesterday we had our big quarterly meeting. I wrote profit sharing checks of $125,000 back to our agents. Anybody that's been with us for 5 years becomes a part of the company, and they get profit sharing. And so that's $125,000 that could just be in my pocket, right? I could do a lot of things with that money. And sometimes I think I could do a lot of things with that money, but I know that I want to give back to those agents who have been loyal to me, and I do appreciate them, and I want them to change their family's trajectory, right? I mean, some of them come from humble means and they're changing their entire generational wealth for their family. And so that's pretty cool. That motivates me. So when I talk about discipline and not being like accountable every day, that doesn't mean that we don't help our agents succeed. We're still there. If they ever want to go to lunch, if they want to talk about business, how do I grow? What should I be doing? We still do all of that. I'm just not going to do it in a form that, you need me to motivate you every single week. But we still motivate, we still help. And our agents, I think, appreciate that, and they love the value. And so it's been great. But that's what motivates me, really, just helping our agents succeed. And a lot of times helping our agents succeed mean giving them tools for their clients, right? So the more tools they have for their clients, the more value they have, the more success the agent can have and the more money they can make. And so that's what I'm always looking at, like, what's next? What can I do for the agent next? And it's not fake, it's true, and I mean it, and I'm always looking, and that's how we've grown so much.
That's fantastic, because really, I mean, it's good. You don't have to motivate all day every day, but if they know you're there when they need it, that's that peace of mind that you have that you don't get everywhere. And
Yeah.
in fact, like you said, having the tools, I think one of the things with people's success today is like they're looking for the easy button rather than doing the basics and then leveraging the tools that are available. Or else, if they're on 100%, you've got to invest in those tools,
Right.
for yourself, in hopes that you can recreate kind of what others have done.
Yeah. And guess what that means, Corey? You're not on 100%. So, blend that commission and make sure you know where you're at.
So, which again, the first time talking to you is the first time I've heard the blended commission, and I've spoken to thousands of agents over the years, and I've never heard that process. But it's a fantastic way to break it down. So those of you on here really need to sit back and go, okay, am I getting the most to give to my clients the most from where I'm at? So it's fantastic the fact that you kind of bring it to light in such a simple method in order to see kind of, where are we? How am I? Am I sitting in the right place? Because you talk about the grass is greener, and one thing we always say is, culture is something you cultivate. And if you join a team, like to join your team, you need to help us cultivate the grass, not just sit there and pull it up until you got a brown spot around you. Those are people, like you say, they kind of suck the culture out of you. And so that's fantastic. One thing I want to do, I don't, obviously, Rob, you and I can sit here and go all day like we have before. And but I want to take a look, and this is a time for open it up for those that have questions for Rob. Go ahead and in the Q&A in the bottom, go ahead and enter your question, and we can read these off. And here's a chance to have someone that started from nothing. You heard of zero database to grow into 877, just a little over 877 million last year. So what questions do we have here today? Let me pop them up. Okay, here's a question for you. When did you know you wanted to lead a team instead of being out there selling?
Yeah, so I got to the point where I was doing about 10.5 million on my own, and things started falling through the cracks. 10.5 million, it's good, right? It's really good, but it's not like, super amazing, but that's a lot of transactions back then too. So I remember calling a client, and they said to me, oh, we bought a house last week. And I was like, what? Right? Like, so then I knew. So every time something happens, I always look in the mirror and say, what could I have done to make this turn out differently? Right. And I always look at, like, even if it's something I probably wouldn't have done, I always try to take the blame and say, what could I have done differently? So I knew that things were falling through the cracks. I'm not keeping up like I should. And so I hired my first agent, Jill Murphy, who is still with us today, 21 years, I think, maybe something like that, 2021. And so she started handling buyers for me. And we went up like only about $1 million to like 11.5 the next year. And then I hired a paperwork assistant, office manager, and then we went up 16.5 million. So that really kind of, we took a lot of stuff off our plate with the paperwork. But really, to fast forward a little bit, I had a subdivision that I was wanting to get, a new build subdivision. And I played basketball with the two sons, but the dad was a developer. And the dad had a best friend in the business who was getting the subdivision. But I told the sons, I said, get me an interview, let me practice, tell me what I did good, what I did bad. I just need practice for the next one. So he said, okay, we'll do that. And I, made this big presentation and got super prepared. And in the end, he gave it to me. And so, which I didn't expect really. And so now I had a new subdivision. Well, back then, everybody that got a subdivision sit on it, made a lot of money, right? I said, I'm going to train 2 agents to sit on it, and I'm going to keep running the resale division. But we're going to have 2 silos on that. So I was told by many people it won't work. And when they want me, they want me to sit there. And my answer to that was, when you go to Walmart, does the Walton family ring you up? And her response back was, oh, you think you're Bill Walton or Sam Walton, right? And I'm like, no, I don't think I'm Sam Walton. Like, I think that it can be run without me being there on site. So that's when we started really growing the team. And then from there I stepped out of buyers completely, and then a little longer I stepped out of sellers completely, and now I work on the business, not in the business.
Wow, that's great. Actually, what's funny is I think you just said one of Gary Keller's myths is that no one can do it like you can do it. You just have to train them to do it, right?
Right. 100%. Yeah.
Oh, that is a fantastic answer. Got some more questions. So what is your opinion of the future of cloud brokerages that pay higher splits?
Oh, that's a great question. So I am not a fan whatsoever of that. I think part of the reason we have such good retention is because of our culture, because we get together for team events, we do happy hours, we do meetings, we do all of that stuff, and all of the cloud brokerages that are out there that at least try to convince me to come over is, well, we don't have office space. And I'm like, okay, well, I have 13 offices. So those are people who want to be around people. Real estate is a super lonely business. If you're an individual agent by yourself and you are in a cloud brokerage that you're just out there on your own and you don't have, some people like it. Like, I've got a buddy that's in one, and he says, I don't really like people all that much. So I'm just, this is where I'm at, and I'm just running. And I'm like, well, I kind of like people. I like being around people. I like enjoying going into the office every day and talking to my agents and being around people. So for me, it's not the right answer. Again, there's a butt for every seat, as we always say. So some people, that's what they want to do, but absolutely not for me. I think the culture, I think it's really hard to grow a team of 180 agents and think you're going to get 99% retention on that without having a culture that's a super good fit for people.
I couldn't agree with you more, because it's tough being on an island all the time,
Yeah.
So next one is, how do you stay up to date with industry trends and changes?
Yeah. So I do read a lot, and I look at Inman and Real Trends, and all the magazines that are out there, and try to keep up on that. I at our meeting yesterday, I did a big not a big presentation, but part of our presentation was we talked about the lawsuit that was happening with NAR, and what does that mean in the future? Are we prepared for what it means in the future, and some things like that. And what our value proposition is going to be in the future if this happens, and some stuff like that. And then also, we also looked at a lot of companies' financials. So a lot of the companies that are publicly traded, I mean, not a lot, every company that's publicly traded, you get their financials, right? So we looked at that, and last year was, companies losing, $400 million, one lost $1.35 billion. Our company here in the hub of where I'm at, we have several different companies, all which were profitable last year, which is great. But the company that I'm with here was over 100 or $150 million in profit. So I want that. I don't look at that like, ooh, they should give me more money because they're making money. I want that because they can continually invest back in us. And we have office space and buildings, all that stuff that I want as part of our culture. So with that, not only do I look at that stuff, but my staff is really good. I'm always asking my staff, hey, what's next? What's the next thing, social media wise? What's the next thing? We're doing a big called Agent Team Connect, or I think it's Team Connect is what we're doing. So big app that everybody's on, our entire team. It's going to be super seamless. Really cool. So I've got great staff that keeps up on a lot of that too, that, because you can't by yourself, you just can't keep up on everything. unfortunately.
Thank you. What's interesting? I actually got something else out of your answer that I didn't even think about. When earlier I asked you, what do you look for when you go for a team or a brokerage? And I'm realizing that you work for a brokerage, so you're looking what you tell people to look for. You currently handle yourself. You're not the top of the chain in your brokerage. So
Yeah.
it's really great because I just realized that's two different perspectives. One as a team lead, but then yet you're going to your brokerage going, guess what? You could negotiate more, but you realize the value when you talked about, well, they have this profit. You want them to profit because that means the value's back into you. That was sorry, I got a little extra insight.
Yeah. Well, and the thing with that too is like when I talk about our companies making money, I don't, people say, why don't you cap and only pay a certain amount in? I'm like, if I cap, my company doesn't want me to sell anything more than when I cap. And they'll say, no, I don't think that's true. My company does. And I'm like, what if you sold 400 more deals after you cap? Your company's going to have to hire people. They're going to have to do transaction coordinating, right? They're going to have to do all that stuff. And they have no money because you've capped. So my companies, they love it because the more we grow, they make a little bitty piece of everything we do. So what is their incentive to make me grow? They make money. So they help me add agents. They help me with tools. They help me with all of this other stuff that you don't get at 100% or a cap company because they truly don't want you to grow too big after the cap because they would lose money, right? So and again, that's just facts. I mean, if I ran a company, I would say, hey, I want them to cap and then not sell anything else after that, or maybe a couple, right? But that's it. So
that's great insight. Glad I asked the question. That's something you just don't think about as an agent,
yeah.
No one is who has influenced you.
Oh man, I've lots of people have influenced me. I mean, we had a great owner of this company named Jerry Reese, and somebody I looked up to a lot. And so he was a big influence when I first started. Several brokers that I'm really close with. Chad Dumas here in my Lee Summit office, I'm really close to. He's a young guy that's super successful and just has some great ideas, and he's been great. But as far as business goes, the number one person that mentored me was a guy named Fred DeLibero, and he started Summit Homes. And when he was selling maybe 15 or 20 homes a year, we met. He kind of liked the way I did business. I liked his business methods and stuff, and we kind of ended up connecting. He ended up building about 500 plus homes a year, sold it to Warren Buffett. So it's Warren Buffett owns one of our companies as well. So that kind of merged, but I was selling 75 homes a year. He was selling maybe 15 or 20. And I always told him, like, look what I did for you. I made you go all the way to 500 and some sales. And he said, look what I did for you. You went from 75 to 2000 sales or whatever. So we tease each other, but I mean, 3 or 4 nights a week, we would literally be on the phone till 3, 4 a.m. in the morning. And he was a guy that knew how to look big picture and scale. And when you're an individual agent, I didn't really know how to scale, right? So every time we added people or did something or, said, well, how do we do this? He helped me build that foundation that now it's so solid. We can go to 10,000 agents and we're fine, right? Because that foundation is so solid. So, so he's been my biggest business mentor by far in my life to really learn how to build that foundation first and go up from there. So
for the person who asked that question, if you're looking for a book from his mentor, it's not out there. Okay, so
no.
Oh, that's great.
No mentor books, no coaching for the most part. I haven't really delved into the coaching. I tried coaching one time, and all I figured out is I kept asking them how much they did in business when they were there. And I finally found out my coach couldn't make it in real estate sales. So they went into coaching, and I'm like, well, how are you going to get me to $100 million if you haven't even been to $2 million? Like I can't see that. So, and it doesn't mean that some coaches aren't good enough to do that, but I just didn't feel like that was the right fit for me.
Okay, next question is, how do you handle challenging clients or situations within your team?
Right. So I look at it like we do whatever it takes to make that client happy. Quite honestly. I had one situation, I'll tell the story. We had a guy on the team, his wife unexpectedly passed away, just super quick, unexpected. And we'd never had that happen. So we said, hey, what do we need to do? What can we do? And he said, I said, what deals do you have? What can we handle? We handled everything that he gave us. But what I didn't know is he had another deal that ended up falling through that he didn't pay attention to. These people were out of the country. They come back. It wasn't closed like they thought it was. It was a bad deal, right? My broker walked in and these people are screaming at me. We'll never use you again. You're awful, blah, 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 all this stuff. And I'm listening and he looks at me like, you might as well hang up on him because you can't make them happy, and I just, I hit mute and I said, I can't because they're right. We screwed up, right? One of our people messed up. We didn't have a plan for this. And so I told him, I said, look, I'm paying to, here's what I can offer. I'm paying to sell your house. Not charging you a dime. I know you need your hardwoods refinished to get it sold because it wasn't selling very well. I'll refinish your hardwoods as well. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna give you my best agent one of my best agents, I should say. And they were like, oh, okay, maybe we will use you again if it's free and we get our hardwoods redone, right? So we ended up doing that, and I'm not gonna say they were ridiculously happy at the end, right? But they didn't put a bunch of stuff on social media. They were happy, and I paid the agents to do the deal, so it wasn't just free. It cost me money, but they were 100% right, and we messed up. So I really think that if you have a challenging client, if you're wrong, fix it. Because sometimes a challenging client means you've done something that maybe wasn't right. Meaning like maybe you missed a fridge in the contract, you need to buy a fridge, right? Not anything unethical or whatever. But if they're challenging and you didn't do anything wrong, I loved it when I got to the point in my career that I could say, I'm not the realtor for you. Like, we're not a fit. So that's okay. I had one guy one time that, we had billboards everywhere and we had all this advertising. He's like, you guys don't know how to market and I can market better than you and blah, blah, blah. And I said, hey, I'll send over the cancellation agreement and, good luck and, hope things work out for you. And he's like, well, I'm not canceling. And I'm like, well, because you don't want to go pay $3,500 for the billboard, right? Like, I mean, that's the deal. So per month. So yeah, I think I just always try to look at, again, I mentioned this earlier, when you have a challenging client, I always look at the other side of it. What could we have done? Even if it's something that maybe you wouldn't have thought about doing, could I have done something differently to make that right? And so we just really try to be genuine and say, hey, we're here to take care of you. And if it doesn't work, some people you just gotta cut the string and let them go.
Because it doesn't matter what you do, you're not gonna make them happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So next question, because we're kind of running out of time here, is what strategies do you use to effectively market a property and attract the right buyers?
Good question. So kind of goes back to the value of our team. So I want our agents to be able to sit in front of a seller and say, we are doing everything we possibly can, right? So most agents in our business, they spend $0 on advertising, right? They put it in MLS, and it syndicates to whatever sites their company syndicates to, and that's it. That's what they do, right? Well, we try to do everything you possibly can. Jerry Reese, the owner of JD Reese that turned into Reese Nichols, told me one time, most agents throw out a 10-foot net to catch the fish when they're fishing, right? So they try to catch the buyer with a 10-foot net. Well, here at our company, we throw out a 100-foot net, right? So if there's outlying fish, we're going to catch them. Same holds true, right, for buyers. So we still do billboards, we still do magazines, we still do forced registration websites to generate leads. So everything we do is to bring leads into the company. The more leads we can bring into the company, the higher we're going to sell that house for. Right. And so that's part of our value proposition. I used to also tell my clients, what happens when a CVS gets built on one corner? What goes on the other corner?
Walgreens.
A Walgreens, right? So why the same company, the same business model, right? Why right across from each other? Because the more leads that go into that area, a rising tide floats all boats, right? So our theory is, the more leads we can generate in by magazine, by billboard, by forced registration, by new construction communities, like everything we do brings in more leads, you're going to sell your house for a higher price. So to answer that, we do everything. We spend $700,000 a year on marketing, and we go big on that.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm just going to grab, so we're almost out of time. There's two questions left. First, they're going to come with a different spin. Got two lender questions. Well, since we are a lender, I got to have it in there, So one is, I'm coming from two different aspects here. Okay. One is a loan officer saying, what is it that your agents look for in picking a loan officer? And the other is an agent going, what should I be looking for when I choose a loan officer?
Oh, I see.
I kind of took two questions, wrapped them around, because it is the age-old thing of mortgage, sale, real estate. How do we don't do this, we have to go like this. So how do we make it look like this?
Right. I see. That's Jake Scarborough. What's up, Jake Scarborough? Sorry. Yeah. So, first and foremost for us, I want local. Right. I don't want, I tell all of our people, like, if you're doing an internet deal, something's going to change at closing. We all know how that works. So I want somebody local. I want to be able to walk into their office and say, hey, what can we do here? What can we do there? And then, really more than anything, local and reputable company. Right. So if they're with a reputable company that they can say, hey, here's our background, here's our history. Obviously with lending practices today and the banks that, in 2000 and, during the recession and the failed banks and all of that stuff. I mean, you want somebody with, super solid history and everything. So, and from that point on, I mean, obviously interest rates play a part in it a little bit, but it's really your loan officer. If you've got a good company, they're local, and your loan officer is a good communicator, that's the main thing. You're not going to have a problem with closing if you can always get a hold of your loan officer. So many times if I hear, oh, I had a bad deal with this company, and I think, wait a minute, I've worked with, this guy over here and we've been great. It's because of the loan officer. The loan officer really is the key to that whole smooth transaction. It's just like building a house. If you have a really good construction manager, your house is going to go smoothly. If you have a really bad construction manager, going to be problems along the way that you're trying to figure out, right? So it's the same thing. If you have a really good realtor that communicates good, your deal's probably going to go good. So really, local company, a good history, and then communication from the loan officer is probably the three things I would say.
Fantastic. Which, of course, I got a pitch. Talk to your Silverton mortgage loan officer out there.
Heiserman's on here somewhere, I'm sure.
So. Heisman by so's Roman. So we're glad for that. And of course, we're going to hit you with the last question here, because this is something, actually, believe it or not, a lot of people go nowadays, especially if they're in major metro areas like we are. Any book or podcast recommendations you have? Like, what are you listening to? What are you reading in order to kind of keep, I mean, you have great energy, just even on this call and just when we talk in general. So what are your recommendations?
Yeah. So I'm not a big book reader. I liked recently. Oh gosh, what's the name of the book? It's Find Your Who. I think. Have you read that one, Corey? I think it's like Find Your Who or something like that. Gosh, I wasn't prepared for that question. But it was a really good book, because it was me. Like, if I could say what's my strengths and weaknesses, and you asked me what my strengths were, I would probably say delegating. Right. So I trust people. If I got good people in place, I delegate, I let them run with it. And that I lose money for time. I would rather have time to be at basketball practices with my kids and things at home than I would to make more money by just working 90 hours a week again. Right. I mean, I did that, coming up, but now I've traded time for money. So Find Your Who is a book that basically, the cool thing about the book is you figure out partway through the book that the guy writing the book isn't even the guy. Like, he had somebody write the book for him. So he found his who to write the book about what he wanted to write the book about. So, I mean, that's delegating, when you get credit for a book that you don't even write. Right. So, so I love that book, and I love being able to, instead of thinking in terms of like, how can I do that? I think about, who can I get to run that for me? Who can I get to grow that for me? Right. If I want to open another office, I'm not going to try to run that office. I'm going to find a great manager to run that office. business. So I always want to find my who. So I would say that, as far as the last book I read that really kind of hit home for me, is that one. And then podcasts, I kind of jump around. I think there's Super Agents Live and any real estate podcasts that are out there, I listen to. And I like wealth and investing and rentals and apartments and that kind of stuff. So I love listening to that stuff, because we do a lot of investing on the apartment side, as well. So yeah, I don't have good names for you. I wasn't prepared for that.
Okay, they can, boy, who knew what they're gonna ask, but I guarantee
Yeah, easy.
it's enough to go for, because now I have a book I have to read now that you've thrown that one out.
Absolutely.
It's funny how you're talking about, the 3 things you look for in an agent. I'm like, wow, we just read The Ideal Player myself. Team player. So, but unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. If you submitted a question that we didn't answer, please, you can email me, or you could message me. If you're on LinkedIn, watching this on LinkedIn Live right now, just message me on LinkedIn, and it's Corey, Corey, as my name on the screen, .knight@silvertonmortgage.com, and I'll make sure that Rob gets your question and we get you answered. And then Rob, on behalf of everybody that popped in here today and Silverton Mortgage, we appreciate you spending your time with us today. Your enthusiasm is most definitely contagious, and I guarantee with the questions you got, you inspired all and touched a lot of people out there. So, hey folks, as you know, we're gonna be doing another speaker series this summer, so be sure to connect to Silverton social media for more, as well as finding this recording. And got to pitch ourselves here at the end too. If you're a real estate agent or broker that's looking to grow your business, reach out to Silverton. We'd love to help you. And Rob, thank you for trusting us to helping some of your clients too, because like you said, it's relationships that build long-lasting business and going forward in the future. So thank you again, Rob. And we want to give everyone out there that's attended today, wish you the greatest of days.
All right. Thank you, Corey. Appreciate it.